This is Dino, an anime-style illustrator known for his eye-catching, emotional and dynamic characters, but more than that, he's a master of dramatic lighting and expressive rough rendering. I used to think the only way to make great art was to literally perfect everything, spending tons of hours polishing, too scared to show any imperfections, until I realized all that effort no one even notices among the piles of AI garbage. So that got me thinking, what is he doing differently that makes rough rendering look so perfect? In this video, I'll be attempting to recreate this piece from scratch, showing you my journey to uncover Dino's secrets and explaining how his lighting cheat completely changed the way I draw. This time, instead of rushing into drawing, I broke down Dino's illustrations first, and that's when I started noticing some really interesting patterns. His dominant light source is almost always so strong and high contrast that any extra light is barely noticeable. Look at this dynamic range. That's why light, or more precisely value, becomes his main tool to control where you look. Remember this, it will make sense later. But let me wonder, what else keeps your eyes there? Poses? Dino's poses are insanely well planned. Even when the character is just standing or sitting, the pose still works for the composition. The body flows through soft S and C curves and it makes the scene feel alive. Your eyes naturally glide to the focal point. Even when nothing is moving, he changes the perspective just a bit and it instantly feels like motion. But one question kept bugging me even more. How does he draw so fast and still make it look like this? I needed more than just final image to answer that, so I got lucky and found a real gem. His time lapses. Here's what they reveal. Dino starts with a really rough line art, but what's interesting, he still separates every overlapping object into its own layer. That made me think, if the final line art is so rough, why bother with layers at all? And then I noticed something even smarter. Before drawing the fingers with line art, he blocks out the shape using a silhouette. Such a simple trick, but it makes a huge difference. Instead of forcing perfect lines from the start, he finds the shape first. Same with the scarf and other small details. And only then he starts adding shadows using a multiply layer. I've already explained this technique in cell shading video. But then something weird happens. He starts adding all kinds of soft highlights and the illustration already looks almost finished. And the colors, they're really nice. I honestly thought it's impossible to get such good colors using blending modes. So how does he actually do it? I was supposed to do a study, but I am so tired of studies. So I thought, what if I skip it this time and try drawing my own piece using Dino's trick? In this attempt I used my own brushes, but later in the video I'll switch to Dino's exact brushes, so stick around to see how they compare. The moment I tried to clean up the sketch into line art, it became... fuck. Yeah, I forced myself to leave it messy and moved on to coloring instead. I drew the light, added some random highlights using blending modes and got to what I thought would be the fun part. I started adding details, fixing lines, adding textures, but of course it didn't go the way I imagined. Till I finished it. Maybe some parts were fine, but overall not even close to Dino. The lighting felt flat and kind of lifeless, but even that failure was really useful. While I was suffering through it, I realized 4 really important questions. To find the first answer, I had to go back to his time lapses. After Dino switched to coloring, he never goes back to fix the line art. He keeps it as part of the final piece and draws everything else over it. At first, I thought he was drawing his line art using implied line. You know, when you don't outline the whole shape, just draw it with a few light strokes and let the viewer's brain finish it. And that's when the separate layers finally made sense. He bothers with them not to perfect line art, but to build the form without getting stuck fixing messy lines later. Dino plans every shape carefully, balancing detail and empty space with just brush size and transparency. To answer the next question, I had to make a great sacrifice. I just got Dino's Pixie Fun Box. There isn't much content, but the stuff that is there is pure gold. Look what happens when I switch this layer. Dino's skin already has these beautiful colors, even before any lighting is added. Just like I expected, he uses a multiply layer, but not the way I imagined. How? In normal mode, that layer is just a flat gray, filled with soft pink spots in the skin areas. That in multiply makes the skin look alive. But look what he does next. Dino erases the light areas right on the shadow layer's mask. Why does he do that? Because he uses the same mask to add a linear dodge layer only on the light areas. That's what creates his strong contrast and why his lighting looks so dramatic. But hold on, is it really what I think? All extra glow and reflected light from the background are all done on a separate overlay layer, which means most of his color variations comes from blending modes. Even in darker illustrations when he starts in grayscale, he still colors everything using overlay, where he usually picks really low saturated colors for this. But if you think Dino picks perfect colors from the start, he doesn't. Actually, in his PSD files, you can see that after the basic lighting is done, he starts correcting colors using any color correction tool. And it didn't stop there. Before finishing, he does one more pass of final correction, boosting contrast, sharpness, or add grain with chromatic aberration. To answer the last question, I had to go through some serious research. And guess what? He actually shared his lighting cheat. Remember what I said earlier about value? This is where it matters most. To draw dramatic lighting, you only need to accent one side, either the light side or the shadow side. If the light side is the main focus, that's where you stack all the detail and color variation. The shadows stay low contrast, so your eyes don't get distracted. But if the focus is in the shadows, the light areas stay almost empty, while the shadows keep all the contrast and information. We've already seen this in Dino's art, but it only works if the light source is strong. That's why his lighting is always so bright. So after connecting all the dots, I knew there was only one thing left to do. So yeah, I finally did a study. But this time I didn't rush. I actually planned it first. That's why I built Universal Art Planner inside the free Adapt kit. Grab it in the description. Only after that I focused on building form. I thought about every stroke, what shape it made, how heavy it felt, and honestly, I could feel the impact of every line. As soon as the structure felt right, I filled in the silhouette and added base colors. I didn't care about Dino's exact palette, I just picked similar hues. Then I recreated his lighting setup, just like we saw in his PSD, and added a bit more detail on top. And it actually worked. Look at this, it already feels so atmospheric and dramatic, and it was way too easy. When it was all in place, I finally started polishing over it, cleaning where it actually mattered. But where does it matter? The thinnest lines and most textured strokes are always near the focal point. The face, hair, chest, hands, so I refined only those areas. And this really was the workflow I'd been looking for. And the most important part is the one left unspoken. Dino's techniques, especially his lighting cheat, let you render less. You don't need to polish everything, you only spend time on what the viewers will actually notice. Everything that looked like chaos at first, the rough line, random strokes, strange layers, turn out to be a really efficient system. And that's exactly what makes this workflow so achievable. But if you want to actually use this lighting cheat, you need to understand cel shading first. I explain that foundation in the next video.